Political commentator Ben Shapiro blasted Candace Owens, calling her an evil, twisted human being for her upcoming documentary on Erica Kirk. Let's take a look at a snippet from the trailer of Owens' documentary, which is called Bride of Charlie.
Additionally, the trailer includes critical voices against Erica Kirk and a clip of political pundit Dave Smith saying, quote, Zionists, the Prime Minister of Israel, all lied through their teeth about Charlie Kirk. That's a quote. Owens wrote on X by posting that trailer, quote, we'll be back on Wednesday.
Meanwhile, in a 9-minute video posted on X, Shapiro urged Erica Kirk, the wife of deceased activist Charlie Kirk, to sue the living hell out of Owens. Shapiro added she is making money off the murder of Charlie Kirk by literally implicating his widow and everyone else at Turning Point USA in that murder, and then trying to dig up pseudo-dirt on the wife of the person who was murdered. I don't know what to call that other than evil trash. Former FBI Deputy Director and conservative podcaster Don Bongino, slammed Owens' new documentary, calling people attacking Erica Kirk demonic scum. And comedian Alex Stein told Sky News host Rita Panahi on Tuesday that Owens is, quote, incredibly jealous that Erica is now the CEO of Turning Point USA.
In the recent months, Candace Owens has thrown a number of conspiracy theories around the killing of Charlie Kirk and has also propagated the idea that the French First Lady, Brigitte Macron, was actually born a man. So, this is Candace Owens, your best friend, is equal opportunity making documentaries about people. I mean, she's offended the entire Democratic Party with her documentary about Black Lives Matter. She's offending internationally with her documentary about Brigitte Macron being a man. And now she's offending the entire Republican Party with her documentary about the Bride of Chucky, Bride of Charlie.
I don't care that she's offending people. I care that she's a liar.
Well, she did say that she would stop if Erica Kirk asked her to. I'm assuming in their closed-door meeting. Perhaps Erica might have asked her to.
I knew if someone had asked me ahead of time, I would have. I don't know Erica at all. I'd never talked to her, and however she is handling with this is an impossible situation because Candace is a deranged lunatic and a maniac who will not stop. No one telling her to stop is going to make her stop. She is going to do this no matter what. She's not out of respect for Charlie. She is monetizing. She is trying to milk her former relationship with Charlie for all it's worth in terms of getting her attention and money and clicks. And that's what's happening here. She created this idea. She manufactured this idea that Erica or Turning Point had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death. It is a lie. There's not a shred of evidence to support it. There is a suspect in custody. That suspect will get his day in court, but he is absolutely guilty of the crime, and his motivations for committing the crime are very clear and known to us, and they are not suspicious. They are not like, oh, that doesn't add up. They actually add up perfectly well. There is nothing out of the ordinary that needs to explain what happened here or how this happened. But Candace gets mileage out of introducing ridiculous explanations to things that don't require them. I don't like to smear people as conspiracy theorists because sometimes conspiracy theorists are correct. This is not one of those times. I don't know. I can't name anything she's ever been correct about, frankly. But put this in the L column with so many other things she said. I also don't believe Brigitte Macron was born a man, personally. But
well, she spends a lot of time and effort. So the same way that the president spends a lot of time and effort saying that the January election was stolen a couple of years ago and tells people that it's still to this day stolen, puts up websites. You said that he believes it. So I got to believe that Candace believes that something went wrong here. Charlie Kirk was her actual friend. And so maybe she's trying to defend him in her own way that doesn't land well for people that understand the grieving state of a widow. So obviously it would be seen as a little heartless. But at the same time, that's her friend. And sometimes people rationalize death and almost lose their minds in ways trying to figure out how to explain to themselves why their friend or partner or whomever is no longer here. And it seems like she's trying to rationalize that in some weird way, in my perspective. But also, she has to know if Charlie Kirk was actually her friend, I'm sure he would not want to see his friend attacking his wife if he was here. So that would probably be ideal for her to not do that. But she's welcome to, like you said, YouTube is the wild, wild west
I
where
don't-
people are allowed to
Yeah.
share their opinions.
I don't think this
and
is
she's
her
putting it on
processing her
YouTube.
grief.
I'm just saying that could be. That could be.
I think she's not a very intelligent person.
There are a lot of people that are on the conservative side. I wanted to get your perspective on this, that are kind of upset about everyone who was at the America Fest, that Turning Points threw in Phoenix, that are not, they said, why are the speakers not speaking up, condemning Candace Owens? They asked, like, where's Benny Johnson? Where's Steve
Right.
Bannon? Where's Megyn Kelly? Where's Tucker Carlson? They want everybody to say this is wrong. Right is right, wrong is wrong, since they're so able to do that
They probably
in other
should.
situations. You think that they should jump in? Megyn Kelly kind of said, I don't want to be a part of this Candace Owens bashing conversation. She said that directly.
Yeah, nobody likes being put in the position, why haven't you denounced X? Why haven't you denounced Y? That's kind of annoying when anybody says that. And it's like, why do you don't control me, man. I don't have to denounce anyone. What are you, we don't go around denouncing people. That doesn't result in a bigger coalition. The right has become very, looks
Woke?
skeptically at, well, no, they would say the woke thing is being forced to performatively denounce someone. We're not doing that. We should never do that. And I totally understand that perspective. So I don't care if anyone denounces Candace Owens or not. It's not like denounce her. It's just like, please stop taking her seriously. I don't, or if anyone is taking her seriously, I don't know that they are. Clearly she has fans. I mean, her videos perform well. I don't know who's watching them. I think this idea, I think there are people who are convinced that Turning Point had something to do with or that Israel has, again, I seem to sound like a broken record here. I'll consider that idea if you have any evidence to demonstrate it. They don't have any evidence.
Well, you have to watch the documentary to see what perhaps evidence she might display.
No, I just give me the highlights. I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna watch it?
I'm not gonna pay. Oh, I have to pay money, or I have to give money to Candace Owens to find out what. No, all these people just say they're like, "Don't you think it's weird that?" Or well, I'm just asking questions about. You're just raising points. You're not pointing to anything that can solidify this. Dave Smith's guilty of that. Ian Carroll, very guilty of that. They hate Israel, and so they're like, well, it's just obvious to us that it was Israel. I'm like, well, it's not obvious to me. Why would they kill Charlie Kirk? Okay, let's game this out. What do they benefit from? How has this helped? This has not helped the pro-Israel side of the right at all. If anything, it's damaged them very tremendously, because what we now know is that Charlie was doing an admirable job of holding the right together on this issue and many others in a way that is at least minimally pro-Israel. The anti-Israel side is dominating since his demise. So the idea that they would want to take him out because he was about to, but also there's no evidence of it. There's no evidence, and like I would buy it, or I would look into it if you could show me anything to indicate it was the case.
Yeah, well, Candace Owens is not going to stop, as we've seen from the Brigitte Macron documentary. It goes on and on. Even if they threaten a lawsuit, it goes on and on. So just expect much more of this, is what I can tell.
Yeah, I don't know that, by the way, I don't know that suing her is the right way to, I think I would prefer to just deprive her of attention at this point. Now, and maybe, we talk about her all the time, so maybe that's a failing. I don't know. I don't know how to handle people who have big platforms, and so they're going to be able to say, and they're going to be part of the discourse, but are so far off and so wrong.
But why can't you welcome a dialogue with her in the same way that you did not bash Tucker Carlson for welcoming a dialogue with Nick Fuentes? He has a huge following, same thing. So people still should talk about her and interview her, according to your logic about Nick Fuentes and how, one idea doesn't mean every idea he had.
Right. To be truthful, I think Nick Fuentes is about 1,000 times smarter than Candace Owens. And,
really?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to agree with you there.
New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is facing heat from many on the right for requiring residents of the city to show multiple forms of identification to become an emergency snow shoveler.
Now, New York City is facing its second snowstorm in less than a month and its first blizzard since 2016. Mamdani declared a local state of emergency ahead of this big snow. Mamdani announced on Saturday that emergency snow shovelers would be welcome to join the efforts. Let's take a listen.
For those who want to do more to help your neighbors and earn some extra cash, you too can become an emergency snow shoveler. Just show up at your local sanitation garage between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. tomorrow with your paperwork, which is accessible online, at nyc.gov/snow, and you can get started right away.
The New York City Sanitation Department website said in order to complete the registration, an applicant must provide 2 small photos, size 1 to 1.5 square inches, 2 original forms of ID plus copies, and their social security card.
Wow. Some on the right blasted Mamdani's ID rules, suggesting that the Democratic Socialist mayor is not consistent in his policies. Fox News host Jimmy Failure, a friend of mine, wrote on X, Zohran Mamdani requiring 2 forms of ID to be a voluntary shoveler for the blizzard. This is Jim Snow 2.0. Oh my God.
Haha.
Another New York City-based X account wrote Mamdani snow shoveler ID circus. Peak DSA hypocrisy, 2 photos, 2 IDs, social security card to earn $19 an hour, but 0 verification to vote?
Meanwhile, during a press conference on Saturday, Mamdani responded to the criticism of his emergency worker ID requirement rule. The mayor said federal law requires that employers get authorization and documentation to pay people for work. We are not allowed to just cut checks to individuals for their work. Anybody with half a brain understands that there is this 2 very distinct difference in 2 legal categories, right? So one is federal employment and for paid labor, okay? And the other one is regulation of access to a constitutional right. And so I don't understand why people at Fox are so confused about this notion. I mean, it's about employment law, not civic participation. And so what is the distinct
easier
difference?
to become an emergency snow shoveler than it should be to vote?
You're being paid by the city, so you need to figure out how to fill forms out that require you to get paid. You're also considered a city employee, which is totally different than exercising your civic duty. Okay.
Stop using facts.
I'm telling you,
logic
you need
just feel in your gut the wrongness of this situation.
No, there's IRS reporting, there's Social Security contributions, there's W-9 work that all needs to go into you being an employee versus people fought for your right to be able to vote and that civic engagement.
I want to live
You're exercising a constitutional
right.
right.
Emergency, you can just pick up a shovel and do it. But to vote, maybe you need to show your ID. That's how I would balance those 2 things.
No,
shoveling snow, we're not going to ask that many questions about it. Voting, we would like to know that you're an American citizen. I think that's the reasonable.
Yes, but the point and the examples that
there.
were brought up about people that are most disenfranchised by this are really clear and simple. So if you have a birth certificate and you happen to change your name, but you need 2 forms of ID, well, your birth certificate is not going to say your married name, even if you went through all the proper channels to change your name properly. Now you got to go through extra channels to get that. A passport sometimes is out of reach for some Americans that don't have $60 to go get a passport or the time to take off work to go do these things if you need a second form of ID. So it's just, yes, I know you can't relate, but in rural areas throughout the country, there are people that are really living check to check. I believe the census said about 11% of the people in America are living exact check to check. So they might not have $60 to spare. And then therefore, you're asking them to go do something, take time or money out of their schedule that they really can't, because they have to put food on the table to go do something when they have.
Then I guess they're not going to vote.
No, it's not right. They need to vote. They need to vote because it's a civic duty as opposed to a paid opportunity that you're going after for your city. Then you need to get your stuff together and inconvenience yourself because there's money on the line. A civic duty is just like we are supposed to vote.
In most circumstances, liberal Democrats love paperwork and government forms, properly following proper protocols. Have we licensed that? You can't put up a lemonade stand without some Democrat saying, "Are you paying your employees minimum wage?" That kind of thing.
Why do they talk like that?
When it comes to vote, I don't know. When it comes to voting, then it's oh well, we could never infringe on somebody who doesn't have $10 rights to. I mean, this is silly. This is just absurd.
No, to you. That's what I'm saying. We can't relate in big cities. A lot of people.
Well, it's absurd to me, and it's absurd to 80% of people, including 80% of minority groups who are supposedly the ones negatively impacted by this, even though I don't see much evidence of that.
CNN commentator Fareed Zakaria went viral over the weekend when he blasted Democrat-run cities such as New York and Los Angeles for their spending.
Zakaria says the spending has gotten out of control and is only going to get worse. He cited New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's recently proposed 2027 budget of $127 billion. Let's watch.
New Yorkers pay tax rates comparable to European countries that provide in return universal health care, free college education, and amazing infrastructure. New Yorkers get some 300 miles of sidewalk sheds. New York is really a prime example of a problem Democrats seem unwilling to confront. Blue cities are out of control, promising more, spending more, delivering less, and pushing off the fiscal problems to some future day.
In addition to the Big Apple, Zakaria also called out major cities like Los Angeles and Chicago. He accused LA of being inefficient with their money when it comes to homelessness, with reports suggesting the city's homeless rate has only increased in the past few years, despite spending billions to fight it.
In Chicago, he says the city's pension program has expanded so much it will surely bankrupt the city at some point. Zakaria argues these cities have the right ideas in mind, but that they go about achieving their goals in the wrong way.
What is the theory of good government here? If the answer is keep adding programs, the city will keep producing unaffordability, because unaffordability is what happens when government becomes a machine that grows faster than the society it governs.
Zakaria's segment got lots of responses, both positive and negative, on social media. Billionaire John Arnold echoed his sentiment, saying, "This is an important message to progressive mayors. The era of sustaining bloated operations through tax increases on a shrinking base is over. They must think about better rather than more."
But journalist Thomas Kennedy was much more critical, writing, quote, "Florida is about to abolish property taxes because of a libertarian fever dream that mostly benefits retired boomers, which will effectively collapse municipal services and public schools funding in the state." And this is what Zakaria chooses to focus on: an unserious person. What say you, libertarian?
As a libertarian and a fevered one, we don't want to abolish property taxes. We want to abolish income taxes. Sales tax is the ideal way to fund government service from a libertarian perspective. Income tax is the worst. Property tax is somewhere in the middle. I take the person's point. We don't want to just get rid of property tax and leave other forms of taxation in place, because that does benefit the elderly, because they're the ones who own property. So then you're getting, and they're the ones who have most of the wealth in society, and they're the ones who get most of the benefits in terms of Medicare and Social Security. So you don't want to remove the taxes on the people who are getting disproportionately all the benefits and who disproportionately have all the wealth. So that is not something we libertarians want. I want to reduce income tax. Primarily, that's the main thing, so that people can be productive. Hardworking people keep more of what they earn. You want to go out and work more because you're keeping more of what you earn, and then you're spending that money, or you're saving for a home, or you're putting it into the economy. Sales tax is what we like because it's fair to everybody. Everybody's going to pay it regardless of what you have, and that's the great equalizer. We can talk about different approaches to taxation, but bringing it down broadly, and particularly bringing down income tax, is what I would be in favor of. Now, blue cities love their little income taxes, huge income tax, want us to be like Europe. Some countries in Europe, you're paying 60% income tax. Majority of what you earn goes to the government. And I think Fareed made a good point there. But in Europe, you do get, for having done that, they get services that they like.
Like healthcare.
And right. But here, New York is getting close to that. What is it? Is it offering anything close to what European countries offer when they take that much money?
Well, big cities are expensive to run, right? So he's just speaking like it's so easy
Okay,
to
but
solve.
Denmark's not expensive to run?
I mean, they provide millions of dollars in services to low-income residents.
No, they don't. They provide pensions. That's what is
one of the
bankrupting.
things, but there are several other services.
The low income, that's not bankrupting the city. That's a trifling amount of money.
Trifling?
It is. What's bankrupting the city is pensions for government employees. Government employees are going to ruin everything for blue governance because they're greedy, and they have unfair benefit systems that do not exist in the private sector. There's no equivalent for them. It's very unique to America as well.
I think that whether it's homelessness or whether it's overspending, we're still reaping a lot of the effects of COVID. And I think you have to be mindful that in big cities, whatever was happening in smaller cities was exacerbated times a million in every major city like New York. I mean, we saw some of the implications. So the fact that cities are, 6 years out, just picking up the pieces, not even from the ending, from the start, just picking up the pieces, you got to give it some time to reorganize and reshuffle. It's easy to be like a population of, some thousands versus millions. I think that's a real harsh criticism. And I know he's trying to appeal to like somebody moderate down the middle, but then propose a policy. And I know he's a journalist, so that's not his job. But like for the moderate people that are criticizing Mamdani,
policy is to phase out pensions.
Okay, there's people who've worked their whole life with the idea of getting a pension. So maybe start from the people right now, but you can't phase out pensions of people that are retired and will have nothing to live off. You want people to do what? With their ailments and elderly age, what would you like them to go do to make money if they have no pension, even though they worked their whole life thinking they would get one? How do you want them to live, Robbie?
I don't care.
It's like if you have a 401k and then they phase that out and you're retired now. Well, this is an odd time to choose that you're phasing this thing out.
Government. It's taxpayer money. They took our money. And they said, but I was promised your money. You can't take it back.
So then people just going to go broke and have no food on the table, can't pay a bill. They're going to depend on Social Security only. Are they going to depend on like $500? That's what you want people to depend on who are retired? That's not right, Robbie. You got to have a more nuanced solution to this.
For young people to not be able to start families, to not be able to afford childcare, to not be able to buy homes, because old people who retired at, after 25 years of employment at 65 and are going to live 30 more years and have government granted. I'm not complaining about any system you worked out in the private sector, whatever. A lot of these things are ridiculous, but fine. But are going to get government guaranteed benefits paid for by young people for 30 years. Massive amount of their salary ongoing. Do you see these Medicare Advantage plans? These Medicare Advantage plans, we're paying for golf lessons and tennis lessons.
To keep older people active?
I think they should pay for their own tennis lessons. Dear Lord. Dear Lord.
Lindsay. I care. I just really have a deep care about the grandmas and grandpas.
Well, it's not a lot. I mean, I love my grandparents too, but they'll be the first. They would be the first
to medical care.
They'll be the first to tell you that they saved their whole lives so that they would not be a burden on anyone. They were my grandparents, financially savvy people who saved and have plenty of money now, and it's not that they're taking it from us, and they're entitled to that because it's their money because they saved it.
But the average American might not be in the position that your grandma and grandpa is, particularly in this economy. So if you look at where people are and how maybe their funds changed, especially referencing COVID again during that last period that was rough on a lot of people, when you think about the expensive medical costs, even with coverage that we talk about, and most people hit some kind of, they always recommend that you get disability. That's more important sometimes than life insurance because most people experience something where they need a couple of weeks off work, and most people just don't get paid if they're not in a situation where they can get paid. And so therefore people have ailments that do cost money. There's a lot of things that come up that might deplete a savings. I've watched it happen to a variety of people that you can't plan on these kind of things. And so sometimes it's nice to know that you have invested in something that will protect you in the long run in case this cushion that you were lucky enough to save or that you weren't because the economy is like it is right now. Most people live check to check. There's studies that come out every year about this. So what do you want them to do, these young people right now that are trying to retire someday? You want them to be like your grandparents when they have no way to do that because groceries are more expensive than they've ever been and, living day to day is still. I mean, it's the number one issue.
Reduce their taxes. That's what I want to do. I want to let them keep more of their income. That's what I want.
Well, the president just passed the one big beautiful bill that didn't really help the average American reduce their taxes, and so they're still paying high taxes. So what are we doing?
We should reduce income tax and start with that. That's what I'd be in favor of. But all these blue cities we're talking about, they don't want to reduce income tax. They want to increase it. That's what they're working toward. Raise your taxes. Well, we've got a lot more to talk about from last night. The president's speech made history with its 1 hour, 48-minute runtime, and a lot happened during that time.
Let's just start seconds into his speech. Representative Al Green from Texas was removed from the chamber for a second year in a row. Take a look at this video after Trump declared that America was back to a standing ovation from Republicans. You can see Representative Green standing too and holding a sign that reads, "Black people aren't apes." Green was then escorted out and had this to say after leaving the chamber.
I wanted the president to understand that it is unacceptable for him to portray Michelle and Barack Obama as members of the primate family. I wanted him to experience somebody defying him up close because apparently the people around him can find never reason, it seems, to explain to him that some of the things that he's doing are unacceptable. And that's what I did.
Now, it was the first of several Democratic protests against the president last night. And while there were fewer outbursts from their side of the aisle, some still broke through.
One of the most notable happened when Trump asked members of Congress to stand if they supported the statement, quote, "The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens." Democrats did not stand, which led the president to begin admonishing that side of the room, and this back and forth with Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar.
You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
That exchange garnered some attention online. Hassan Piker applauded Omar and Rashida Tlaib sitting next to her, writing on X, "Ilhan and Rashida, my queens, I will ride for you into battle." Oh boy, Congressman Randy Fine summed up many of the reactions from conservatives online, addressing Omar directly in his own post, saying, quote, "Well, you should be deported."
But what may have been most striking, the protests from the Democrats, was just how many of their seats were actually empty. Some simply boycotted the speech altogether, and others counter-programmed the speech, addressing the crowd outside the Capitol at the so-called People's State of the Union. Senator Chris Murphy was among those who skipped Trump's speech in favor of the rally outside and said this.
I am not at the State of the Union speech tonight because Donald Trump is making a mockery of this great institution and he doesn't deserve an audience. I'm not at the State of the Union speech tonight because you're not going to hear about the State of the Union. You are going to hear lie after lie. You are going to hear attack after attack. You are going to see grandstanding. The true State of the Union is this. This union is in crisis right now.
Murphy's Senate colleague, Mark Warner, echoed his message in a post on X, writing, "Walked out of the State of the Union because I couldn't sit through hours of Trump's lies. Americans know the truth. He's spiking prices and wrecking our economy. We're a better country than this."
And then there was the official Democratic response this year coming from newly elected Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. Here's a taste of her just 13-minute rebuttal.
In his speech tonight, the president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated, and he distracted. And he offered no real solutions to our nation's pressing challenges, so many of which he is actively making worse. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country. Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs.
Spanberger's focus on affordability didn't sit well with some Republicans who pointed out that her party wants to raise taxes in her state. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn made that point in a post on X, writing, "Abigail Spanberger's the last person who should be talking about affordability. She forget that her fellow Democrats in Virginia just introduced a laundry list of new tax hikes, including a dry cleaning tax, a home repair tax, a dog walking tax, and a gun tax." Oh, tax.
Your favorite word, tax.
Ugh.
Well, we can start there with tax. Trump said a lot last night, and it sounded good, but like everyone's alluding to, a lot of it was extremely over-exaggerated or just flat-out lies. We can start with the tax or the tariff. He said they're paid for by foreign countries. Now, we know that's not true. They're paid for by American importers, and the cost of it passed off. Right, so we can start there. We talked about immigration. He said we're deporting illegal alien criminals from our country at record numbers. That's not true. The numbers actually show that the people, most of the majority that have been deported, don't have any criminal record. Healthcare.
Oh, but some do.
Yeah, some do. But he said record numbers, and he keeps using these words: criminal, rapist. These are what we hear him say over and over again from the campaign trail to his first year in office. And it's exaggerated.
Okay, so that's the winning Democratic message. They're not all rapists.
No, I'm starting
Let them
there.
stay.
No, I'm starting there. I'm telling you why I'm starting and why people didn't stand up on the other side of the aisle. Because if you stand up and oblige him, if you stand up and oblige him in that moment, it's making it agree that basically his policies are what you accept. When most of the country doesn't like the way that he's implementing ICE and the policies, they agree that immigration could be handled better, but don't like the way that Trump's handling it. We've seen that in many polls. Let me finish. So healthcare. He took the time out of his schedule and a lot of chunk of the State of the Union to talk about healthcare when Republicans know this is a losing issue for them. Out of all the issues, most people believe that Democrats will handle healthcare better. polls have shown that. Most recently, yesterday, one came out that we kept referencing on News Nation. So there's a rise in healthcare coverage costs because we didn't do anything about it last year. Republicans didn't agree to any agreement with Democrats when the government was closed, and so people are actually paying more for health care. He talks about drug prices dropping 300%. That's not a real number. 100% will be $0. And so the fact that he keeps saying 300, 500%, that's just untrue. They're not $0. And
they pay you for health care.
The cost of cancer drugs and some of the biggest insulin are still really high. They haven't changed at all and won't likely change, according to experts, from this prescription drug agreement that he came up with. It also has the chance of just raising other countries' costs. Yes, insulin and cancer medicines are still extremely high. They haven't changed at all.
We haven't changed yet, but we're in the process.
Yeah, but also a lot of people who reviewed this said, well, we want us to be paying the same amount as other countries. So what that might look like is other countries' prices rising to match ours, as opposed to ours lowering. So he might not be positively affecting anybody. And then the last thing is that he said, quote, we will always protect Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. And that's just a lie because they cut $1 trillion for the next 10 years from the Medicaid budget to protect people because of the big, beautiful bill. So he's making stuff up. But he's saying stuff that's just untrue.
Yeah,
so
we
that's
have
not
to
the state of the
seniors
union.
Whatever they want to hear so that they can vote against us, and then we'll cut their Medicare and their Social Security.
So the largest voting bloc are the same people that you want to take away pensions for.
Misleading them and then taking away their benefits.
Right, so to me, that doesn't all make up a good State of the Union. If it sounds good but it's not actually true, that's my biggest problem about this thing, because most of it was untrue.
I don't know that most of it was untrue. I actually noticed fewer times where he said something where I said, well, that's just not right, probably than any other speech he's ever given.
Because he spent most of it handing out awards, like the Academy Awards, because he knew that he can't go off of his record. It doesn't make sense. It's not affecting us in the way that he promised.
He faces considerable Democratic opposition to achieving anything, including to getting rid of illegal immigrants. His top
You have a
policy
Republican
goal,
Congress.
I think he was installed to do, and the states are fighting him, and that's why you're having all these confrontations. So it is hard to do, but the Democrats didn't stand for immigration enforcement at all, and that's going to come back to hurt them.
Tom Homan has pulled a majority of the ICE agents out of Minnesota, and from what I understand through extensive reading is that no policies have changed on the local law enforcement's part with their interaction with federal government in regards to
the local people in blue states aren't going to help, so
no, they said the policy remains the same. You can come to federal prison facilities and collect migrants. You have a 2-week span.
Well, that's not what
nothing has changed.
What the mayor of Minneapolis says, but
the governor who oversees the entire state said that's the same thing that's happening.
He says a lot of fuddy-duddy things. A new report alleges Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett called the police on a CNN reporter and had another reporter ejected from one of her events. According to Semaphore, security escorted Atlantic reporter Elaine Godfrey from a campaign rally that Crockett was holding on Monday, and Godfrey's reportedly covered Crockett at length, even was granted access for a profile on Crockett last year, but Crockett tried to pull the plug on that profile before it was released. I remember discussing that one with Niall last year. That comes after CNN reported Edward Isaac Dover allegedly had Capitol Police called on him earlier this month as well, with Crockett's campaign alleging he may have trespassed when he tried to visit a campaign office location.
Now, for its part, Crockett's campaign has denied that Godfrey was removed from an event, but Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg confirmed that one of his reporters had been registered to attend an event and was later asked to leave after they started to ask questions. Godfrey criticized the move, telling Semaphore in a statement, quote, "In a democracy, elected officials answer questions from the press rather than hide from them. This is completely unacceptable behavior by Representative Crockett and her team and needs to be addressed immediately."
Crockett isn't the only Democrat who's allegedly taken an increasingly adversarial tone with national media. An aide for California Governor Gavin Newsom emailed a reporter from Real Clear Politics telling them to expletive off earlier this week after the reporter asked for proof of the governor's dyslexia, which he mentions in his new book. Oh, my girl, Princess Jasmine.
Look, we complain about over and over again about the president kicking Associated Press out of the press room at the beginning, of his term. We complain about the different things that he's doing to press. Jasmine Crockett, if this is true, cannot be repeating these behaviors. These are both two journalists that have interviewed her before. Because you don't like what they say, that doesn't mean that they're not allowed to report.
Right. What bothers me or concerns me is that I think Jasmine Crockett doesn't understand how the media works. Like when she tried to pull the plug on that profile,
I
yeah,
remember.
it was right. It was
Still-
already done. And then she was like, you know what? I'm canceling this. Well, you can't, once you've agreed to speak on the record,
It's on
you
there.
no longer have any power over what the journalist does. Right? If you say we're not speaking, we're speaking off the record, and then they publish your comments, then you get to complain about it.
Right.
But if you don't clarify that, or if you don't set the terms in advance, you have no control over it. So her not like getting that on a very fundamental level, this seems in keeping with that.
Well, I think in recent weeks we've seen, especially because James Tallarico's interview got so much traction online after CBS allegedly pulled the plug on it. I think we've seen early voting start. We've seen people have conversations about Jasmine Crockett being the star in this race, and then Tallarico kind of surpassing her in certain ways. So this is like desperate times, desperate measures. I don't think this is a good strategy, kicking out press and only getting good press. You have to win based on your merit and the messaging and the people believing that you can actually stand firm, 10 toes down against a Republican in a state that generally elects Republicans. And I think that's what we've been hearing. I've been watching a lot of the local news segments as people are at the early voting polling places that want to answer the question about who they're voting for. And a recurring theme I've heard from people who voted for Tallarico is like, it wasn't that I didn't like Jasmine Crockett. It was that I needed to pick somebody I thought definitely could win this thing. And so I don't know. You have to look at, you know.
I think Tallarico is gonna win the primary, and I think he very well could win the general election against Ken Paxton, who's looking more and more likely to be the Republican candidate. The Republicans are totally going to shoot themselves in the foot this one. You hate to see it, and it's totally foreseeable in advance how this is going to go. It's going to be Kerry Lake all over again, but they just can't help themselves.